The Weeknd is back with a new EP titled My Dear Melancholy. You should all know The Weeknd by now. He burst onto the scene in 2011, leading the way for the alternative R&B sound and ended up being quite a forward-thinking artist in terms of what was to come in the R&B sound in modern day music. His trilogy has become pretty legendary at this point. House of Balloons, Echoes of Silence, Thursday are some mixtapes that have legendary status at this point. They actually are very good as well. It's not like they're overrated in my opinion. I actually do think there's a lot of great music on that trilogy series, and it's become very influential too. As time went on, he went on to more pop sounding stuff. Of course, he did the song for 50 Shades of Grey, which became his first ever hit. Then he released songs like Can't Feel My Face, The Hills, which were #1 hits. And the album saw a huge amount of success too. Starboy carried on that success, that mainstream success, with singles like Starboy, I Feel It Coming. And I think it's safe to say that his career has followed quite an interesting trajectory at this point. I mean, of course, that sound in 2011 ended up being like the dominant sound in what R&B ended up being, but then as he got more popular, he started to do more Michael Jackson type stuff, which I think is pretty damn good. I prefer that sound over most mainstream pop songs. I think he's dropped some of the best pop songs of the past few years. But when you look at albums on the whole, I think it's safe to say that any Weeknd fan can recognize that his past two albums were nowhere near as forward-thinking and as interesting and as compelling as the trilogy mixtape series was, despite the fact that he has actually some amazing singles from these past few albums. The one thing I've taken away from this new EP though is the question of whether The Weeknd has released this EP as a stopgap to tie over fans before he goes back into the more mainstream pop leaning stuff for his next album, or is it a bridge back to that earlier sound that he was once famous for and become iconic for? Because this new EP doesn't have any sort of smash hits like Starboy or I Feel It Coming or anything like that. It's very much that sound that he was known for back in 2011. It's that sound that maybe a lot of fans have wanted him to do for a long time. And I've got to say, it's actually pretty good. I quite like this EP, mostly for the vibes it gives off, as opposed to how much enjoyment I get. I think it's a very vibing album. It's certainly very sultry, very sensual. It's very much what we once knew him for. But a part of me feels a little bit disappointed because on that Starboy album, despite the fact it being a pretty average album overall, although it did have some amazing songs on there, I do think there were some ideas on there that were so cool that I would have liked to have seen him flesh out and carry on. I mean, tracks like False Alarm was just this frantic, chaotic insanity that I just would love to see him try even further and see what else he can do with that style. Even though I love that earlier sound as well, I just feel like the style that he's got going on this EP is kind of in the past, and I just want to see him progress. The one thing you always get with fans is that, oh, I want them to do their first album again because their first album was amazing. You know, again, an example is Nas. You know, no one really thinks he ever lived up to that first album, and people loved that first album and wanted him to kind of recreate it as each album went on, but as an artist, you don't really want to keep recreating the same song unless you're AC/DC. And as a music lover, I constantly want to see artists pushing the boundaries of their own sound, see how far they can take things, experiment, and it just leaves me a little bit disappointed to see that The Weeknd has gone back to that sound, probably to please those fans. But also, it could actually be because this is focusing more on a breakup. I do believe this is about Selena Gomez. I'm not really one to get into gossip and all that kind of shit, so I don't really know what went down there, but I have heard that people are saying that this is about her. And you do get a lot of lyrics referencing a breakup, so of course, if this is more of a breakup sounding EP, then it would make sense for this sound to fit that topic. So maybe it is just him doing this for the emotions that he's experienced recently, rather than him actually going back to this sound completely and redoing what he's once done. But it has produced some incredibly sounding songs, some very beautiful ideas across this EP. Call Out My Name, just a very triumphant track where he bursts through with the call out my name. And he sells it so well, man. I mean, on all of his sort of deeper, emotionally driven tracks, he always sells it because he has a great voice, I think. And he just manages to build that passion up out of nowhere, and it just comes through sounding brilliant. His execution is always top notch. These sounds across this album are vivid. You know, everything going on just kind of sends you in a trance. Even though you could argue that House of Balloons did do this better 7 years ago, but what's going on here is actually pretty damn good as well. The closing track is probably the most beautiful of the bunch, Privilege. This track actually has a really interesting song topic to it as well. Here he makes reference to the red pill, blue pill thing, in the sense that red pilling you makes you more aware of things and you become more just sort of in tune with what's going on, as opposed to being blue pilled in the sense that if you're blue pilled you're ignorant to things around you. But the way he does it is incredibly smart though as well, because we all know that The Weeknd's character over the past few years has always been like a very drug crazed guy who takes a lot of pills, so that sort of metaphor is really cleverly tied in. But on the EP we do get the usual sort of forcing emotions onto women that he's always done, that sort of, oh well, you can't possibly be feeling the way you're feeling because I'm hurt. Like, it's that sort of attitude that he's had across his entire discography, which I've always thought was a little bit dickish. But in terms of this EP, I mean, I guess from his perspective, if he has been broken up with, then I suppose maybe that could be the case. Because if you are the victim of a breakup, you know, the other person that has been the one that's broken up with you, then they're probably not as hurt as you are. But still, you don't know that. You don't know the reasons as to why they did it. They might have felt awful for doing it. They might not have actually wanted to do it. But The Weeknd just assumes without really knowing, I guess. We do get a different side of things on the track Hurt You, though, in which a girl is hurt by him and she is looking for love again from him, but he isn't interested in, and he's basically just claiming that he doesn't want to hurt her. But there is a confusing line where he's like, oh, if you're looking for love, then that's not what I want. But then it's like, but if you call me up, I'm fucking you on sight, as if like, oh, you're gonna have sex with her anyway, even though you know that'll probably hurt her feelings. You know, it's just that attitude that he's got in most of his music that always makes me go a bit, You know, it's so easy to not be like that. Like you can just not do that. I mean, it's not hard. Like, it's not hard. But I guess that's always been the appeal to The Weeknd, because, you know, most people are shitheads, and people relate to The Weeknd because he's also a shithead, I guess. I do also want to point out on the track Try Me, the hook with the try me, try me, try me is very similar to Kero Kero Bonito's track Try Me. Like, if you listen to both of them, they actually follow a similar progression. I never thought I'd make that comparison, like, ever. But here we are. There's a Kero Kero Bonito song that actually sounds like a Weeknd song. Obviously, the Weeknd track is, you know, completely covered in the atmospherics and the reverb and all of that thrown in. And Kero Kero Bonito does it in a very different way, but it's just a similar chorus. And I guess the rest of this EP's enjoyment for me mostly comes from its sound. I mean, Gefalstein does a really good job on his contributions on the production. On a few of the tracks, there is a track with one half of Daft Punk that does the production as well. So it's not really surprising that the production is the best part of this EP when all the people involved are incredibly talented. But I guess, as I've already said, I was very interested to see where he was going to go with the pop stuff and see if he could produce a truly great pop album with the sounds he was working with on his past few albums. That I was actually fine with him continuing with that. I don't really think we need him to go back, because if you want that sound again, why can't you just go back and listen to Trilogy, because that's kind of the best it's going to get. I don't think he can really redo that sound and make it better than it has already sounded in the past. But even though this EP has produced some beautiful, blissful sounding songs, I just don't think there's anything else that can be done with the sound that's already been done. So I think it's time to just look at The Weeknd's music and think he's done that before, he's done it really well, so let's try something different now. Overall, though, I think this is pretty good. For what it is, it's pretty good. Let me know your thoughts on this EP, and if you like this review, subscribe to the channel for more reviews, interviews, podcasts, track reactions, lists, everything music related. Comment and let me know your thoughts on this, of course. Which sound you prefer? Do you think this actually is him going back to his old sound, or do you think he's going to go back to the pop sound once he releases a full-length album? Let me know. 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 Have a good day. 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 Have a good day.